session that we're about to go now is how Hunters closes deals without a POC. So Hanan is VP Sales at Hunters. It's super interesting, very specific use case that actually Hanan has been with Demo Stack and with some tools like that. We'll be able to talk about right now. So let me just go over the bio for Hanan. It's awesome. So it's definitely interesting. Hanan has over 20 years of experience in creating and selling innovative enterprise cyber solutions. Prior to his role as VP Sales at Hunters, Hanan served as VP Products at Elusive, which was acquired by Proofpoint, and at Forescout. Hanan was part of the early team at Checkpoint, so Hanan's used to the cybersecurity world. And he developed Firewall 1, VPN 1, and Provider 1. I'm sure many of the participants here have even used some of those products. Hanan served as a major in the Israeli Air Force. So Hanan, welcome. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Barry, for hosting me tonight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's really our pleasure, excuse me. So Hanan, let's start. Just tell us a bit about Hunters. I gave an intro about you, but Hunters is a cybersecurity company. Maybe you could tell us about what Hunters does.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So, hi, everyone. Big crowd today. So I'll share with you a little bit about Hunters. It's a cyber company founded in Israel some 5 years ago. And what we do at Hunters is we provide an automated SOC platform that is taking the entire SOC Security Operations Center, to a next level, a cloud-based solution that is based on a lot of automation added to that SOC processes, from collecting very large amounts of data in an automatic fashion, normalizing them to a similar set, storing them in a single place, and running a lot of queries from different types to eventually conclude if there is a potential threat or an actual threat going on in the organization based solely upon the data that is collected. So a lot of non-trivial correlations, AI, machine learning, and a lot of exciting stuff that we're doing. We are selling to companies large and medium in North America, Northern Europe, and APAC. And that's pretty much it. We are a 150 employees company, round C company, very strong investors. And that's pretty much like our profile as a company.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks. I can tell you that even though your team is 150, you're making a lot more noise than 150. So
trying to.
Yeah. So congrats on that. And thanks again, Hanan. I wanted to give a special shout out to Hanan, who had a busy night and he made room and time for us. So I really appreciate that on a personal level. So thank you. So let's go straight into the big questions. Before we go into the solutions on how you do your POC or how you do it without a POC, I wanted to actually understand what are the challenges specifically with Hunters on a POC, but I'm sure that you have seen some of these challenges with POCs at other cyber companies.
Yeah, I mean, in every company, there is a different challenge, I guess, when it comes to POC. The thing is that, in every single company I work with, a POC was involved. It became like a standard thing. People want to check the goods before they actually make use of it and definitely pay and get in contractual agreement. And I think that when it comes to Hunters, the biggest challenge in the POC, the standard challenges are clear, right? It takes time. There is an investment, and there's also risk involved, etc. Resources investment, all that. I think with the Hunters, the specific challenge to Hunters is the initial steps of ingesting a lot of data. So I'll give you an example. When the Hunter solution, as mentioned, is running on a cloud environment. So essentially, we need to stream data from an organization environment. Think about a bank or a large insurance company, retail company that has a lot of data sources relevant to security. Some of them on cloud, some of them on different cloud platforms, some of them are on-premise, some of them running on applications in their IT environment, a lot of places, and we need to stream all that into the Hunters platform, which is based on the cloud. Usually it's, let's say, Amazon Cloud, for example. That creates some friction because every environment is slightly different. And even if your product works 100% smooth, as we try to make it smooth, can be some blockage from internal moving of the data. For example, like firewalls and other, I would say, restrictions from moving from A to B, just to protect the organization. And then we need to walk through that. That creates some friction, and that's like one of the challenges that we have. And I would say it's a big challenge because it's a critical moment in time. I consider the initial steps with the customer. It's like, you date a girl, and the first, when you step into the coffee shop, restaurant, whatever you're meeting him or her, that's the minutes that you actually create the initial impression, and you have only one chance to do that. And once we do a POC and things are not working, even if it's not because of the platform, because of the solution you're trying to sell, the perception is that it doesn't work smoothly, and that's a baggage that you need to that you rather avoid. So that's, to me, like, this is very holy and very sacred. Like, the first steps, hours, days, week with a customer are super important.
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. It's that first impression.
Exactly.
I think it's specifically interesting that even if it's not your fault, like their firewall, or that they just are very busy and they can't connect something, even if it takes them 10 minutes, it could delay the velocity of the sales cycle by weeks, it seems. Is that a correct assessment?
Yeah, I mean, in large environments, if you think of a large bank that is highly, it's a highly complex environment, it can take weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So for our first challenge, we have is that dependency, and the impact of that is sales velocity. And I bet that happens to many cyber companies that need time for data. Or need data to build that data. So either analyzing their site or actually being able to connect to the data that's needed. The second challenge, I think that could be interesting to talk about and this relates to every company that does POCs, not just cyber, but every company, is resources. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that with SEs and pre-sales on your team.
Yeah, sure. I mean, pre-sales is a very expensive resource, not because of the cost, because it's always you're always in shortage with pre-sales resources. So it's something that you treat as a expensive resource that you want to manage very carefully. Each POC, to be honest, like, again, in my experience, even beyond others, I don't remember more than a few POC that went smooth from soup to nuts. It just doesn't happen. There are always challenges. Every environment is different, as mentioned. And then pre-sales needs to step in. And obviously it's their job, but if you can improve and save even 1 day, 1 hour, 1 week from a POC, that goes a long way in releasing and repurposing the pre-sales team to other jobs. They can juggle more POCs. They can do other things that they do. They can support the sales team in acquiring new deals, bringing them to POC, or converting from a POC. So it's clear that the less issues you have, the less need to involve the pre-sales and really let them crack and solve problems in real time, the better off you are as a company.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of our listeners today are in pre-sales, so I'm sure that they appreciate that notion, that they're viewed, the expensive is their actual time versus that. Any other challenges specifically to hunters in a POC?
Yeah, I think that because we are running on a cloud environment, there is a cost attached to that as well. So running a POC costs us. It's fine; it's part of the business model. But the longer the POC runs, the higher the cost is, and vice versa. And the last thing I would mention is that all the things we talked about boils down to risk versus opportunity. So for me, getting into POC is very exciting. I look at the opportunity. If we win the POC, we move forward, we win the deal. But there is also a risk of not winning the POC, of not getting a good first impression, of getting a friction, of exhausting the SEs, of failing to deliver, of a lot of things, not meeting the customer experience, the customer expectations, sorry. And that's what I call like a deal risk, and it's right there in the POC. And the more we mitigate that, the better off we are running our business.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. So clearly there's a lot of challenges with running that POC, whether it be at hunters, whether it be at a cyber company, whether it be at any company, including DemoStack. There are risks of sales velocity, of cost, of resources, and that first impression. I love that piece of it. So with all of these costs that go into a POC, are they actually bringing as much value as we believe? Our customers, when people are signing up for POCs, are prospects getting what they are even looking for a POC? Or are we giving them even more than they're expecting?
Yeah, I mean it's a tricky one. Look, POCs are here to stay, and we can't avoid it. The question whether or not it brings value to a customer, it's almost a psychological question, right? Because they want to see stuff. They have the success criteria, but it's more about, okay, I've done my homework, I've went through the checklist, and I've vetted this, and I know I've seen it working, and I feel more comfortable. I feel more responsible, and I've done my job. Whether a success in a POC indicates a success in the project, it's a good indication, but it's not enough. Like, you can have a great POC. I've seen like, not naming names, I've seen great POCs. I know companies who are excelling in a POC show, but then failing to deliver. So it's a good question whether or not POC is the best vehicle. But I think for now it's like the standard, de facto standard for evaluating solutions. Whether POCs can be managed in a better way, sure. But I think that's part of the things we're going to talk about today, I hope.
Yeah, I think let's start talking about them now. So we mentioned that POCs are here to stay, but we also think that there could be a different way. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what this other way is, and your experience of that experience.
Yeah, so I think when I look back, what drove us to look at the POC was all the reasons we talked about, but something else that we haven't discussed yet and is important to mention. Sales cycle in our world, in the cyber domain, are normally, I'm generalizing across the industry, 6 to 9 months. Obviously, it depends, varies, geographies, vertical, size of organization, but roughly it's like 6 to 9 months. It's a lot of time. Especially there are deals that can go over a year. And we were, scratching our head and saying, okay, how can we expedite that to have a deal that is less than 6 months. How? In fact, I challenged my team, asking them, okay, I want to close a deal within a quarter. How we do that? And now you look at the POC that takes like a month. And if you do like the preparation and then the wrap up and the stuff can take a little longer. And if you have hiccups and unexpected stuff can take easily like 2 months on an extreme case. And that's eating the entire quarter already. So it's impossible to close a deal. Like you can't close a deal with running the rest of it, like legal procurement, privacy, the entire negotiation doesn't work in a month. So we were scratching our head trying to minimize like the POC duration. And then we came up with something we called an Express POC. Express POC is obviously based on a demo stack environment, like a sandbox environment, a controlled environment. And then we've built a complete, I would say, simulation of a POC inside that controlled environment. So when a customer actually accesses this environment, he gets like a complete guided tour, journey, experience, whatever you want to call it, feel at home, almost as if he's in his own environment. It's not one-to-one, but definitely we made sure that he sees similar things. It's not his own data. We're not streaming his own data. We are using baked data that we put there, but looks very real. And we let it run for a week or two. And we didn't know what to expect, but it turns that quite a few customers went that direction. So we offer that as our lead option, and then obviously you can have a full POC.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm going to double click on this, and this wasn't in our prep doc, but I think you can handle it. So we talked about that POC people really, it's kind of like this psychological piece, like a checkoff, like people, it's even a trust issue, it seems, and it helps resolve and create trust. A demo stack sandbox environment that simulates hunters isn't on their actual data, right? They're not connecting anything. Where does that mean that that some companies don't need as much trust, that they just want to play with it, that they just want to get their hands dirty? What's the psychology here? And this is, I'm asking you not to like offer something specifically for you to say about demo stack. I'm asking you because I'm genuinely curious on how this is effective and how it's working.
No, totally. I'm totally with you, and I was curious as well, as we were all here, curious to see if that works. And the first one who actually took it, and the second one, and the one following, we were actually pleasantly surprised. I think part of the reasons is it's because, look, at the end of the day, if you can see similar data to yourself being analyzed and correlated in a smart way, the interface is the same interface. So it's just seeing different pieces of data. So some people have to see it in their own environment, in their own, their own data. That's the majority, by the way. And especially, I don't know a single bank or an insurance company or a large retail that would go that way. Unlikely. But the broader SMB market, like the mid-size, small size for sure, and tech companies would go for it because they are, tech companies, cloud companies, they understand technology, they understand it's easier for them to accept that notion. There are other considerations. I'll give an example. We had like one of our customers, I think it was the first one, who asked us, okay, I need to get a closure very quickly on this project. How can we do it quickly? And then we came up with this concept, and he says, okay, so there's another drive, which is time. And if someone really wants to get things going, that's a good approach. Another approach is when we ease that transition, we say, okay, you can start with this express option, and if you still feel you're not completely convinced or you need more, we can go the full Monty, right? I can tell you that none of our customers who went through the demo environment actually asked to move to a real environment. Zero.
Of that. I think it's super interesting. I think this use case is very interesting. I think, it's interesting that people. To your point before, you said you weren't going to name names, but there's a company that does POCs and then they can't execute. I feel like people have been burned also by that, where they've done a full 8-week POC, and then when it actually goes into the real product, it still doesn't. It doesn't work. So even a POC isn't real to an extent. And so if someone's been burnt by that, they understand that, I guess, also. So there's that lack of trust, maybe even for the POC. And I think that last point about speed is also super important. Sometimes you need to have, if you have budget and you need to close it before the end of Q3, and you only have 3 weeks to buy, then it's a win-win for both teams. And it's nice that people have this trust and that they, I feel like it's like a mirror. They see themselves enough in that product and that POC that they can relate to it. Then I think it makes sense that it would work. To your point, I'm going to read a question from the audience. It's possible you already answered it, but let's read it. It's from 4 minutes ago from Devin Domingo. Hey, Devin. So how do you find is the best way to position the Express POC? Sometimes we find customers have success criteria to get their hands on integrating their data or playing with the backend experience. How do you handle those objections?
So I think the best way is just to offer it as an option, as a recommended option that reduces load, reduces time. And quite honestly, when you think about it, you experience almost the same. You have almost the same experience as the real thing. It's just not with your own data. So yeah, if you want to see it in your own data, that's fine. I would just say that some of the success criteria, usually in a POC, definitely in cyber, are let's be honest. I mean, in cybersecurity, when someone deploy a solution, a detection solution like ours, what he really expects to see is us finding the next attack. Like, show me a threat, show me an attack that I wasn't aware of before. I want to find the attackers group inside my organization. I want to find the attacks that are going on right now. But chances are, in most POCs that I've seen, like, you don't find attackers in a 1 week, 2 week, 1 month POC, because just timing the attack to that time, and so it's unrealistic. So what you're going to see, like, you're just going to see pieces of your data correlating together, and that I can show you with other pieces of data that are similar exactly in the format to your own data. So we can rationalize that and explain it. And again, not everyone would take it, and it's fine. Definitely not if you're a large organization, but enough organization will take it, and that would reduce the load from your system, from your team, from your processes, and that's enough. Like, you don't need everyone to use it actually.
Right. I think that's a good point. Meaning, if the goal is still that first impression. So if your goal is just to remove the POC, then that could be a bad impression if they want that POC. I think that's a really good point. And some tactics. And we mentioned before, speed velocity, I think, could also be part of handling those objections. So we're running out of time, so I'm just going to go rapid fire. How does this help? And I think you mentioned this. How does this help with sales velocity, the Express POC?
We cut it in half. That organization that I told you about, the first one, we closed it in less than a quarter, like within a quarter, 3 months, which was like the deal before that. The average, the record was I don't know, 6 months, something like that. So we cut it in half.
Amazing. Pre-sales resources, how does this impact those?
I mean, they don't need to tackle real-time stuff in the middle of their night or weekend or in general. Like, it's all baked, it's all clear. They love it.
Cool. And cloud savings, we mentioned before, but we can summarize.
Yeah, I mean, cloud is not our biggest concern, the saving, but obviously it's a marginal saving. That's always nice, but I wouldn't say that like a huge driver. It's nice, but it's not like a huge thing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I've seen, there's new software these days, like the FinOps we've seen, so I guess that would fall under that. So for the FinOps person, it might be nice to have, but usually those are at larger companies. Okay, cool. I think we can summarize. So Demo Stack Sandbox helps with sales velocity, cuts in half in some best case scenarios, which is really incredible. That it saves precious time for SEs. We mentioned also not working weekends, which is definitely even the best time, but also for them to focus on other POCs and other deals. It reduces friction and risk and ensures that first good impression. And without the cloud cost, again, cloud costs aren't everything, but if it does add up with, I know that Hunters does lots of POCs because they're such an incredible company. So I'm sure it saves up for all those POCs.
Let me just add two things that I just realized I didn't add. I think that from customer experience, it's like an effective, super focused, highly controlled POC journey. There are zero surprises, and that goes to reducing risk. And another thing that is very important is that it helps you move faster than your competitor. And that also is very important when you try to win deals in a highly competitive environment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, Hanan, we could probably talk about this for a few more hours, and some of the other use cases. DemoStack helps with the live call. There's a tour on Hunter's website. I recommend anyone to look at hunters.security to check out the tour. So yeah, it's amazing to be partners with you and your team, and we're looking forward to keeping that relationship strong. Thanks again for your time, and also I wanted to thank all the participants. We're looking forward to also staying in touch, and thank you for all your questions. And we really appreciate everyone being involved with this incredible evening of cyber storytelling and cyber, from the live call to before the call to the sandbox. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Hanan.
Thank you, Barry.